65 million years ago, the first Cenozoic period began. Paleogene period. This period is quite huge and is divided into three epochs: Paleocene, Eocene and Oligocene. The Paleogene marked a kind of rebirth of the animal and plant world after the massive extinction that wiped out all the dinosaurs. The surviving mammals became the basis of the animal world. The climate on Earth became more continental. Ice caps and eternal ice formed on the highest mountain peaks. The diversity of flowering plants and insects increased. Bony fish dominate the world's seas and oceans. Primitive cetaceans show up. New groups of corals are born. New species of urchins populate the ocean floor. Monet-shaped nummy-like shells become permanent inhabitants of the boundless seas. Most invertebrates of the Paleogene differed from invertebrates living in today's seas. The Paleogene period was marked by a rapid flowering of mammals. A new fauna of our planet was born. Among the marsupial mammals were herbivores. These animals resembled modern kangaroos and marsupial bears. There were also predators: the marsupial wolf and the marsupial tiger. Many insectivores lived near bodies of water. Some marsupials adapted to life in trees. Marsupials gave birth to immature cubs, which were then nurtured for a long time in their skin pouches on their abdomens. But primitive marsupials didn't survive on land like placental mammals. These animals became extinct, unable to withstand the harsh climatic conditions elsewhere on the planet. Only in Australia, which was early separated from the other continents, did the evolutionary process seem to stand still. The marsupial kingdom has survived to this day. The Paleogene period is characterized by an uneven distribution of fauna over the continents. Tapirs, titanotherians evolved predominantly in the Americas. The trunks and carnivores in Africa. The marsupials continue to live in Australia. Thus, gradually the fauna of each continent acquires an individual character. Many toothless birds, characteristic of our time as well, appeared. But along with them lived huge flightless, running, birds, completely extinct in the Paleogene. These are Diatryma and Phororhacos. Diatryma was 2 meters tall with a long, half-meter-long beak. Each of its strong legs was equipped with 4 toes and long claws. Diatryma lived in the arid steppes and fed on small mammals and reptiles. Phororhacos reached 1.5 meters in height. Its sharp, hooked, half-meter-long beak was a formidable weapon. Because this bird had small, undeveloped wings, it could not fly. The long, strong legs of the Phororhacosloth show that the birds were excellent runners. According to some researchers, the homeland of these huge birds was Antarctica, covered with forests and steppes at the time. What was the animal life like in the Paleocene, which came just after the extinction and lasted 10 million years? Let's take a look. At that time, the continents were still in motion. Gondwana was still splitting apart. South America was now completely cut off from the rest of the world and had become a kind of floating ark. A unique mammal fauna was born on this continent. In the Paleocene, the first Juliids appeared. They were the most interesting snails in nature. New varieties of sea urchins and foraminifers appeared. Cretaceous ichthyosaurs, plesiosaurs, and other predators of the time were replaced by bony fish and a wide variety of sharks. The dominant species was the rayfish. Among them are the almost modern perch, herring, catfish, and pike. Paleocene sharks became more and more similar to modern sharks. The first modern genera appeared: the leopard shark and the rusty nurse shark. The largest Paleocene shark was the Otodus, which reached a length of 9 meters. Other Paleocene sharks reached only 3 meters in length. Some paleontologists speculate that, in the first million years of the Paleocene, there were still single species of dinosaurs in some places. Kritosaurus, for example. But even if dinosaurs really did live in the early Paleocene, it didn't last long. Here are the 3 main groups of mammals: the monotremes, marsupials, and placentals. The first bestial animals appeared on Earth about 200 million years ago. But these protozoans were no match for the dinosaurs, so they waited patiently and secretly for about 150 million years. The mammals of the early Cenozoic boasted a diversity of species. Some early mammals remained insectivorous. The first shrews and hedgehogs ate crawling insects, challenging competitors such as frogs and toads for food. Did insects that flew stay safe? That didn't happen either. Some mammals took to the air and went after flying insects, which represented unlimited food resources. There were plenty of food niches left empty after the dinosaurs died. For this reason, some early mammals shifted to a diurnal lifestyle and diversified their diets considerably. Early mammals evolved into many groups of animals of very different shapes and sizes, allowing these animals to inhabit almost any habitat. Insectivores remained the smallest. Larger animals became active hunters or fed on carrion. Amblypods were clumsy animals that ate leaves and other vegetation. Flat-footed, carnivorous creodonts may have been no larger than an ermine or, conversely, may have been larger than the biggest bear. Allotherians also dominated mammals in the Mesozoic and were some of the most diverse animals of the Paleocene. These animals were small in the Cretaceous and became much larger in the Paleocene. Only 3 species of cloaca mammals have survived from the Paleocene. These are 2 species of echidnas and 1 species of platypus. They are found only in Australia and New Guinea. The first marsupials inhabited North America about 100 million years ago. Later, in the Eocene, these animals spread across all continents except Africa and Asia and made their way to Australia via Antarctica. The marsupials are more highly organized animals than the cloaca, but, despite this, the Paleocene marsupials were represented exclusively by possums. In the Paleocene, many placental mammals remained small animals, somewhat similar to their Cretaceous ancestors. But soon these animals began to seriously compete with the marsupials. The ability to maintain a constant body temperature, a progressive reproduction method, and a large brain allowed these mammals to become a thriving group of animals and gradually established their dominance over the entire surface of the globe. The Lavraciotes were very diverse, ranging from 12 centimeters to 2.5 meters and weighing from 60 grams to 650 kilograms. The evolutionary race in the Paleocene was won not by those animals that adapted better to their ecological niches, but by those that were the first to occupy them. Hoofed predators, as well as clawed and fanged goats, were common in the Paleocene. The second most abundant genus was the order Mesonychians. They were the ancestors of modern cloven-hoofed animals as well as, surprisingly enough, whales. The first Mesonychians were predators, but they also had hooves on their feet. This group included Cynonyx, which had many of the small traits present in cetaceans. The most interesting thing is that no other animal had such traits. Therefore, Cynonyx is considered the direct ancestor of cetaceans. Condylarthra were the ancestors of cloven-hoofed ungulates, trunked animals, and even whales. The cloven-hoofed animals include modern pigs, deer, antelope, and others. Unpaired ungulates include horses, tapirs, and rhinoceroses. Some Condylarthra transformed the claws on their toes into hooves. Some still lived with claws. When the last sauropods became extinct, local shrews had to urgently grow and transform into goats, cows, and rhinoceroses. Carnivora morphs. These were the ancestors of modern beasts of prey, as well as wyverns. In the Paleocene, they were small carnivores up to 80 centimeters long, like ferrets and mongooses. Many of these small animals lived in trees. Large burrowing herbivores called dinosaurates appeared. In the Paleogene, a large superorder called Euarchontoglires originated. Euarchontoglires was the common name for rodents, primates, and woolly creatures. The animals were small and omnivorous, and many lived in trees. These creatures divided into two groups, one of which was named primates. The Zavropsids were a branch of the four-legged vertebrates that included reptiles and birds. The largest group of this class is called the crocodilomorphs. The group was part of the modern crocodilian order, which made up 13% of all genera. Paleocene crocodiles were up to 4.5 meters in size. Some crocodile species lived in the water. Some lived on land. And Pristichampsis crocodiles could run on two legs, like dinosaurs. In the Paleocene, there was the Cenozoic. It was the only crocodile known to science with horns. Why Cenozoic needed horns is unknown to science. The other 13% of the Paleocene genera were birds. These included geese, ducks, penguins, owls, cranes, flamingos, pelicans, cormorants, petrels, plovers, casuars, and pelagornithids. Pelagornithids were similar to modern albatrosses, but very large and with teeth in their beaks. Also in the Paleocene there was a bird similar to the modern crane. It was the Presbyornis. At that time there lived a flightless bird called the diatryma. Diatryma was up to 2 meters tall and weighed up to 100 kilograms. It is worth mentioning the wyman, which was the ancestor of all penguins, and the emu ostrich. This genus originated exactly in the Paleocene. The scaly reptiles gave rise in the Paleocene to the largest snake in the history of the Earth. This is the titanoboa. The snake could be up to 15 meters long. At its widest point, the diameter could be 1 meter. The titanoboa could weigh up to 1,135 kilograms. One of the scaly mammals survived to this day. It was the two-walker Laernulaer. Among the Paleocene sauropsids, it is also worth mentioning the small aquatic reptiles Choristodera, which look like crocodiles but are not related.
After the Paleocene came the Eocene. This occurred 55 million years ago and lasted for 23 million years. This period brought higher temperatures to the Earth. The climate on Earth became milder and warmer than in the Mesozoic. By then, our planet had finally recovered from the last mass extinction. That had wiped out all the dinosaurs. The diversity of life forms had reached Mesozoic levels. This is plankton, a buoyant mass made up of large quantities of small algae and small animals. Plankton are an integral part of the world's oceans. These algae lived even in the most secluded corners of the Eocene seas. In the ocean depths, new species of mollusks appeared. Crustaceans like crabs and hermit crabs also appeared. Snails represented the majority of mollusks in this era. In the Eocene, the extremely poisonous sea snail, the cone snail, appeared. Of the cephalopod mollusks, only the nautilus, which still lives in our seas today. In our seas to this day. Nothing significant happened in the echinoderm world. The flat sea urchin appeared. Sometimes this creature is called the sand dollar. Also in the Eocene, the sea lily pentacrinites became extinct. Many bony fish of all shapes and sizes appeared in the Eocene seas. Lakes and rivers all over the planet were astonished by the great diversity of freshwater fishes. The diversity of ray-finned fishes also increased dramatically. Fish actively filled available ecological niches. Perch. This is the largest order of Eocene fishes. This order includes high-bodied tropical acanthoroids up to 70 centimeters long. The most famous modern representative of the acanthoroidae is the surgeonfish. Mackerel fish have also appeared, including the modern genus tuna. The barracuda, the angelfish and the parrotfish. The most popular fish species called herring or herring also appeared in the Eocene. It was also during this period that nature gave birth to creatures such as hedgehog fish, eels, codfish, oystercatchers, as well as carp, catfish, flounder, salmon, scorpionfish and many others. The famous tiger shark was in the dominant marine life of the time. The deep-sea goblin shark appeared, surviving to this day without noticeable changes. Also from modern genera came the popular sawfish. Stingrays were not exactly widespread in the Eocene, but they were no longer a semi-extinct, but ceased to be a semi-extinct curiosity. In the insect world, ants became widespread. The largest ants in the history of the Earth lived in the Eocene. The size of working individuals, which reached a length of 3 centimeters. The wingspan of males reached 15 centimeters. It was also at this time that modern bees appeared. In the Eocene, many new groups of mammals evolved from the plant-eating mammals of the Paleocene. At the very beginning of the Eocene lived the small 5-toed ungulate condylarthros. These fast-legged animals were the common ancestors of modern horses, cows, pigs, tapirs, rhinos and deer. Coryphodon and Uintatherium. Coryphodon belonged to the suborder Pantodonts. It was one of the largest mammals that fed on leaves and fruits. Coryphodon led a semi-aquatic life. This animal lived in swamps, like the modern hippopotamus. But it wasn't related to the hippopotamus or any other modern mammal. Uintatherium was a member of a Dinosaurid that lived in the Eocene period. It had 3 pairs of horn-like growths on its head. The growths were covered with skin, like giraffe horns. Uintatherium had powerful upper fangs for extracting earth roots that were deeply embedded in the ground. The animal's legs were as wide as an elephant's. Rodents predominated among small mammals. The ancestors of today's lemurs, tarsiers and golagos half-monkeys lived in trees. At the end of the Cretaceous, carnivorous sharks and some species of predatory bony fish took the place of huge marine reptiles. And some species of predatory bony fish. But some terrestrial mammals also returned to the sea to participate in the former domains of ichthyosaurs and plesiosaurs. Among these animals were the mammals from which whales later evolved. The first fossilized whales are known from the Eocene. These aquatic mammals evolved from a group of predatory hoofed mammals who reverted back to an aquatic lifestyle. At the same time, the first ancestors of animals familiar to everyone appeared on land. Moles, camels, rabbits and voles. And towards the end of the Eocene, the first cats, dogs and bears appeared. The Eocene was a time when many new families of animals flourished. The family Anthracotherium. This family included animals that looked like small hippopotamuses. As a result of evolution, the first pig-like animals appeared at this time. In the ancient forests of our planet, the deer-like leptomeryxes, and the semi-aquatic raccoon like Indocheus. Eocene Mesonychians adapted to eating fish rather than vegetation. For example, Pachycetidae lived mainly on land, and fed both on land and in water. The Ambulocetidae fed almost exclusively in water. They were peculiar mammalian crocodiles, up to 3 meters long and weighing up to 300 kilograms. Basilosaurids have gone the furthest in their adaptation to aquatic environments. Basilosaurs are considered the first whales. Unlike modern whales, these animals had a second, rear pair of fins. And many species had fingers sticking out of their fins. In fact, they were not whales, but mammalian analogues of the Mesozoic mosasaurs. Basilosaurids were originally thought to be marine lizards. This was reflected in the animal's name. Basilosaurus reached 21 meters in length and was the largest animal of the Eocene. Other basilosaurids did not exceed 5 to 6 meters in length. Whale ancestors had not yet mastered echolocation. One of the largest land predators of the Eocene is Andrewsarchus. 5 meters long and weighed about 1 ton. The animal had a skull nearly a meter long and could eat even the largest of herbivores. And could feed on even the largest of herbivores. Andrew's arcs were sedentary and omnivorous, like modern bears. Brontotherians. They were stocky and thick-skinned, nose-like creatures, weighing from 2 kilos to 1 ton. The smaller Brontotherians looked more like boars than rhinos. Eohippus, the ancestors of modern horses, were small animals. Forest thickets that turned into swamps. These were the habitats of the Eohippus. The small animals had 5 toes on their front feet and 3 hoof toes on their hind feet. Eohippus had a small head on a short neck and had 44 teeth. Eocene horses weighed between 20 and 55 pounds and ran slowly. In the Eocene, the ancestors of rhinoceroses appear. The hornless animals were small, only up to 2.5 meters long. At the end of the Eocene, the Uintatherians evolved from them. Uintatherians had 3 pairs of horns each, dagger-shaped long fangs, and a very small brain. Titanotherium. Living in grasslands near numerous rivers and lakes, Titanotherium were the size of modern elephants. The giants had large, branched horns. The Titanotherans' teeth were small. This suggests that the animals fed on soft vegetation. Tapirs also appeared in the Eocene. The largest Eocene tapirs, weighing up to 300 kilograms, are from the modern genus tapirs, which evolved in the Eocene and have remained virtually unchanged since then. Smaller Eocene tapirs quickly became extinct. Mammalian predators. The largest family of Eocene predators is the Miacidae. These were coon-like animals weighing about 2 kilograms. The first pseudospecies appeared. This species split into the dog and bear families. But then the future bears and dogs were similar to wyverns and raccoons. The first cat-like creatures were not of the feline family. These creatures looked like lynxes and panthers, but the animals had a gait like bears. Also in the Eocene, the first hyenas appeared. Coryphodon and Hypercoryphodon occupied the ecological niche of the modern dwarf hippopotamus. Hippopotamus. Stylinodon, weighing 80 kilograms, used its fearsome teeth to dig root vegetables out of the ground. Copododon saber-toothed squirrels lived in the trees. These small animals had disproportionately large fangs, which they used either for self-defense or to fight between males. The small, wolf-like predatory creodonts did not yet have true predatory teeth. In the Eocene, true predators with real dangerous teeth evolved from them. In the course of evolution, all members of the canine and feline species evolved from these predators. They were the beta version of mammalian predators. These animals had an unfortunate lower jaw design that made it impossible for them to nibble on bones and eat medicinal herbs. In addition, the brains of these creatures were less developed than those of true predators. Here are examples of beta versions of the following predators. The 60-kilogram hyenodon was the creodont analog of the modern hyena. Patriofelis. This is the creodontian analog of the leopard. Macaroids is a saber-toothed cat the size of a Pallas cat. Sarcastodon is the largest of the Eocene creodonts. This animal reached 700 kilograms like a modern big bear. Only Megastotherium was larger than Sarcastodon. Megastotherium is the largest predatory land mammal of all time. A huge creodont weighing almost 1,000 kilograms. The head of the Eocene predator was twice the size of the head of the modern grizzly bear. The first bats appeared in the Eocene. Icaronecterus was the first bat, very similar to modern bats with wings made of patches of skin stretched tightly over long, thin fingers. This insect-eating animal hunted at night, when other aerial predators would not fly because of the darkness. Rhinoceros-like dinosaurs with boar-like fangs and strange horny protrusions tried to flourish in the Eocene, but failed. By the end of the Eocene period, these animals were extinct. In the Eocene, the first hedgehogs appeared. They were very peculiar animals. For example, Phallodocercus, in addition to needles, had scales on its head in the form of a bone helmet, and the tail was long and scaly, like a lizard. Some Eocene hedgehogs fed not on insects but on fish. And one species of hedgehog ate only ants. Some ancestors of monkeys and lemurs lived in trees. These animals ate fruit and insects. Ancient monkeys and lemurs had long tails and limbs with well-developed fingers, with well-developed toes to help them climb trees. Within the largest superorder of primates was the largest suborder of wet-nosed monkeys. They were small arboreal animals up to 6 pounds in weight and all looked alike. Our distant ancestors, the dry-nosed monkeys, lost their developed sense of smell and began to rely mainly on sight. In the Eocene, dry-nosed apes differed little from their wet-nosed relatives. Rodents, too, sought to occupy as many ecological niches as possible and became more diverse. Rats, squirrels, beavers, and many others. In the Eocene period, the ancestors of modern trunks appeared. These were animals the size of a modern tapir. The tusks of these creatures were small, and the trunk was an elongated upper lip. From them came the Dinotherians, whose lower jaw sloped downward at right angles. At the end of the jaws were tusks. Dinotherians had real trunks. The animals lived in humid forests with lush vegetation. At the end of the Eocene, the first representatives of elephants called paleomastodonts appear. The first representatives of toothed and toothless whales also appear. Paleomastodonts already had 2 pairs of tusks on the lower and upper jaws. But these animals did not yet have a proboscis. Paleomastodon was the largest of the Eocene proboscideans. The animal weighed up to 2 tons. Other species were smaller. The smallest Eocene proboscideans did not exceed 15 kilograms. Eocene Afrotherium sirens. The largest of the Eocene sirenians was the dugong, reaching lengths of up to 5 meters and weighing up to 600 kilograms. These animals have survived to the present day, virtually unchanged. Arsinotherium. This is the African analog of the rhinoceros. Arsinotherium had a pair of large and small horns each. The body length reached 3.5 meters. The distant descendants of these animals are called domins. These are small ungulates living today. South American ungulates in the Eocene evolved sluggishly and produced nothing interesting. They were mostly omnivorous creatures like pigs and about the same size. In the Eocene, a strange animal appeared called Leptictidium. It was an animal like a kangaroo with the nose of a puffin. The predator reached 90 centimeters in length with its tail. In the Eocene, there was also a mysterious anteater called Urotamandua, up to 90 centimeters long. It is not at all clear what order this animal belongs to. The Eocene mammals also include opossums and platypuses, familiar to us from the Paleocene. Penguins have become very widespread. The largest of these birds reached a height of almost 2 meters and a weight of 100 kilograms. They were the largest penguins that ever lived on Earth. Interestingly, all Eocene penguins had long and sharp beaks, like those of herons. In the superorder Gallonserae, which includes chickens, ducks, and geese, the Gusagirival Presbyonis and Diatrema gasterni continued to live, but before the end of the Eocene, both birds became extinct. The Diatrema, a fast-footed, terrible crane, nearly 2 meters tall, lived in North America. It had an enormous beak, similar to a parrot's beak, and monstrous claws, which Diatrema used to finish off and tear apart its prey. Apparently, Diatrema was a fearsome enemy of the early ancestors of horses, and it is likely that this bird could easily have eaten a horse. On the sea coasts in the Eocene lived quite modern cormorants and loons. Also found in the Eocene were huge-toothed Pelagornithidae with wingspans up to 6 meters. These birds with huge wings occupied the ecological niche of the giant pterodactyls of the Cretaceous. The first swifts, falcons, parrots, herons, flamingos, and woodpeckers appeared. Owls were widespread. Crocodilomorphs greatly reduced in numbers in the Eocene. Alligators were widespread first, gavials second, and crocodilians third. The size of Eocene crocodilomorphs reached up to 6 meters. The bipedal crocodile Pristichampsis became extinct in the Eocene. Among the scaly reptiles, the first venomous snakes and the first land tortoises appear in the Eocene. Crocodile-like Choristodera also continue to exist. The amphibious frogs, newts and salamanders continued unchanged. At the end of the Eocene, the vast ocean of Tethys began to change into the shallow Mediterranean Sea. And lithospheric plates in India began to push up the Tibetan Himalayan mountain system. The Earth became noticeably colder. A glacier began to form in Antarctica. All this led to the moderately large extinction event that marks the end of the Eocene. However, this extinction can only be called moderately large by Cenozoic standards. Compared to the extinction of the dinosaurs, it was nothing. And by Cambrian standards, it wasn't an extinction at all, it was normal everyday life.
The Oligocene was the last epoch of the Paleogene. At this time, the Earth experienced a cooler climate than in the previous Paleocene and Eocene epochs. A huge ice sheet formed over the South Pole. To form such a cover, nature required huge amounts of seawater. Because of such changes on the planet, the water level in the world's oceans began to drop rapidly and the land area increased significantly. The cooling led to the fact that tropical forests were displaced by forests that preferred cooler climates and steppes, which occupied vast areas of the planet. Climate change has had a significant impact on the planet's ecosystems and biodiversity. During this period, there were several significant changes in the Earth's climate. First, India moved closer to the equator, resulting in increased rainfall and higher temperatures. This led to the development of tropical forests and increased biodiversity in the region. Second, Australia and Antarctica finally parted, leading to a change in ocean circulation and climate change in both regions. Third, South America became an isolated island, allowing unique animal species such as sloths and armadillos to evolve. Mollusks. This is one of the most diverse classes of animals on Earth, comprising more than 130,000 species. These creatures live in virtually all habitats, from the depths of the sea to freshwater. In the Oligocene, about 34 million years ago, mollusks continued to evolve and adapt to new environments. Gastropods became the dominant genus. Helix and pupilla snails appeared. Cephalopod mollusks also continued to evolve, but the number of these creatures decreased. Among the bivalves, Pteridina appeared. Fishes continued to evolve in the Oligocene and the rayfin fishes remained dominant. The largest of the rayfishes is the swordfish. Swordfish appear among this order. In the second place, catfish and the detachment lampriforms. In this period, new fish species such as mullet, needlefish, and smelt appeared. In addition, Macrurus, a deep-sea cod, appeared. Scorpions and echinoderms also evolved and became an integral part of the world's oceans. In the Paleocene, Carcharodon appeared. This extinct shark was one of the largest representatives of the family Carcharinidae. At present, only fossil remains are known, however. From them we can conclude that Carcharodon were large predators, reaching 18 meters in length. Megalodons. These giants were extinct marine predatory sharks. The predators lived during the Paleogene period and reached sizes up to 25 meters long and 30 tons of weight. Megalodons preyed on large marine animals such as whales, dolphins, and sea turtles. During the Oligocene period, the giant shark or Ceterinus maximus appeared, and this predator has survived to the present day. Ceterinus maximus has a massive body with a short and wide snout that is used to grab prey. This shark can reach a length of up to 6 meters and a weight of up to 7 tons. The predator feeds on fish, squid, and other marine animals. Symnodon. This is a species of rayfinned fish from the family Ciliarinidae of the order of sharks. These fish are distributed in the Atlantic and Indian Oceans. They are found at depths of 110 to 180 meters. The maximum recorded size of 91 centimeters. They feed on small fish, squid, crustaceans, and cephalopods. Reproduce by egg-laying. Hemipristis. These are rayfinned fishes in the family Hemipriatidae of the Scutasauridae. These creatures are distributed in all tropical and subtropical regions of the world's oceans. Hemipristis are found both at depths of up to 1,000 meters and near the surface. The maximum recorded size of these fish is 2 meters. These sharks feed predominantly on smaller fish. Mantibirostris belongs to the family Miliobatidae of the tailfin division. These rays inhabit the tropical waters of the Indo-Pacific region. The maximum recorded length is 3 meters. These stingrays have a very distinctive body and head shape that can be mistaken for the head of a shark. Miliobatidae have a body shape that allows them to camouflage among coral reefs. Yet these animals are quite large and have a high swimming speed. Reproduction in stingrays occurs by egg laying. The diet of these stingrays consists mainly of small fish, as well as shrimp and squid. The spread of steppes to ever larger areas of land has led to a rapid increase in the number of herbivorous animals. During the Oligocene epoch, new species of mammals, including rhinoceroses, appeared. In addition to rhinoceroses, the first true pigs and buffalo appeared in the Oligocene. Finally, the first deer appear in the Oligocene. Animals with unusual digestive systems appeared that allowed them to digest plant food efficiently. One such animal was phytophage. This is an animal that feeds exclusively on plant food. Nature began to reward animals with what is known as a ruminant stomach that could digest exclusively plant food. During that era, the ancient Cameloporotherium lived on Earth and was one of the earliest ruminants. At the end of the Oligocene, about 25 million years ago, a new group of plants appeared on Earth. They were grasses. What makes these plants unique is that, unlike all flowering plants, new leaves grow not at the top of the stem but at the base. As a result, if grazing animals eat the old leaves, new leaves quickly grow in that place. Thus, by the time the next herd arrives, the fields are ripe with a new and hearty lunch. This process of constant renewal of food resources means that the grassy plains can feed large herds of herbivorous animals. From this time onward, evolution produced a great variety of herbivores, and since herbivores proved to be easy prey on the open plains, these animals were followed by a host of new predators. By the end of the Oligocene, the first true cats and dogs had appeared on the planet. In South America, the Oligocene saw a rapid development of mammals. During this period, new species appeared that were different from animals found in other parts of the world. One of the most interesting facts is that many of these animals had unusual traits that helped them survive in the harsh conditions of South America. For example, some of the animals had long tails that were used for balancing on trees, as well as large ears that helped them hear sounds in the forest. Another example. Ancient Pyrethria resembled an early elephant with its half-trunk and chiseled tusks, and Thylacosmolus was a large marsupial animal that looked like a saber-toothed cat. The animal possessed long, curved fangs and powerful claws. In ancient South America, there were many incomplete toothed mammals such as anteaters, armadillos, and sloths. These animals had a number of unique features that helped the animals survive in the jungles of South America. For example, anteaters had a long trunk that they used to find food, and armadillos were covered in thick armor that protected them from predators. Sloths, on the other hand, were slow and heavy animals that spent most of their time in trees. These are the Oreodonts, a family of Oligocene mammals. These herbivores fed on the leaves and shoots of trees. Among the Oreodonts was the subfamily Leptoceniinae. It included small animals that looked like dwarf donkeys. These animals had short legs and lived in deserts. Camelidae is a family of calluses that lived in the Oligocene. The animals were similar to modern camels and had a long neck and hump. However, unlike modern camels, these creatures did not live in deserts but in prairies and occupied the ecological niche of antelopes. Camelids weighed between 50 and 520 kilograms. Family Protoceratidae. This is evolution's attempt to create a fast-moving antelope on the genetic basis of the camel. These true mutants had horns not only on their heads but also on their snouts, making these creatures look like rhinoceroses. The Cenotherium ungulate hare was one of the strangest calloused animals that lived in the Oligocene. Anthracotheriidae are another representative of the Eocene parnopods. These are the distant ancestors of modern hippos. But while Anthracotheriidae was the size of a normal hippo, Bothriogenes and Elamerix were less than 1.5 meters long. The family Entelodontidae, which separated from the general lineage of pigs as early as the Eocene, was finally formed. These very unsympathetic boars were over 2 meters tall and weighed over 400 kilograms. Entelodontidae were predators and hunted primitive camels as well as small rhinoceroses. In the Oligocene there was a great variety of small animals that we rarely mention. The Parnopods Hypertradulidae. These small animals not more than 9 kilograms lived in the jungle and fed on vegetables and fruits. We can't fail to mention a strange creature called Leptomeryx. It was a small deer-like ruminant with a very slender body. During the transition from the Eocene to the Oligocene, the ancient whales became extinct, and those that remained finally lost their hind limbs and divided into two modern suborders, toothed and mustached whales. Toothed whales in the Eocene were as small as 2.5 meters and were almost indistinguishable from modern dolphins. The first cetacean to master echolocation in the late Oligocene was Kentriodon. Kentriodon lived in the late Oligocene about 25 million years ago. This small representative was the first cetacean to master echolocation, which allowed the animal to better navigate in the water and avoid predators. Mustached whales were larger than toothed whales in the Oligocene, but differed from the former only in minor details of anatomy and nutrition. Instead of whale whiskers, mustached whales had normal teeth and subsistence consisted of fish. Echolocation ancient mustached whales have not yet mastered. The canine family, which originated in the Eocene, became prosperous in the Oligocene. Hesperocyaena. These were small, up to 36 kilograms in weight, fast-footed predators like foxes and jackals. Then there were Barophagus, which were even smaller, just under 2 kilograms in weight. The largest family of the superfamily was the Amphicyonidae, which were large and stocky animals. Amphicyonidae had powerful jaws and sharp teeth, which allowed them to hunt large prey such as deer and mammoths. Cynodictis were the smallest members of the superfamily Arctoidea and lived in burrows. Predators preyed on small rodents and shrews using their sharp teeth and claws. In the Oligocene, among the Arctoidea bears, the first species appeared that was more cat-like than bear-like. This was Ursavis gidlei. This is due to the fact that at that time there were significant changes in the environment and some species were adapting to the new conditions. Ursavis gidlei was one such species that became more agile and fast-moving to better adapt to its new environment. In addition, its appearance may have been related to the fact that it lived in forests where there were many trees and dense vegetation that could create shade and camouflage it from predators. At this time, during the Oligocene epoch, two new groups of animals evolved from the general lineage of dog-like animals, which was a group of mammals. These were the martens and the pinnipeds. The quolls, in particular, were the most advanced evolutionarily and became the ancestors of many modern mammals such as minks, sables, and ferrets. Pinnipeds, on the other hand, are a group of animals including ducks, geese, gulls, and other waterfowl that evolved from a common ancestor with dogs. 28 million years ago, the first true cats appeared, which were small arboreal predators. The first cats lived in forests and fed on small animals. The mammal and the lynx are direct descendants of these animals. Now we will tell about Oligocene ungulates. Among all the few ungulates, the most outstanding animal is worth telling about. It was Indricotherium. Another name for the animal is Paraceratherium. It was a megahorse, 8 meters long, 5.5 meters high at the withers. That's almost an elephant and a half. And weighing up to 20 tons. That's 4 elephants. It was the largest land mammal that ever existed. In fact, it was the mammalian equivalent of the Jurassic Brachiosaurus. But this animal had a much easier life than Brachiosaurus. There were simply no predators to stop Indricotherium's living. Indricotheriums ate a soft, plant-based diet. When the climate became arid, these giants died out from lack of food. In North America, true horses gradually evolved. These were descendants of the Orohippus, Mesohippus. The horses were small, up to 55 kilograms. The animals had 3 toes on each foot, the middle toes being larger and longer than the lateral toes. This allowed ancient horses to run fast on hard ground. The small, soft hooves of Eohippus adapted to soft, swampy soils, becoming a true hoof. Mesohippus were already the size of a modern wolf. The animals inhabited the Oligocene steppes in large herds. The brain of Mesohippus was already about the size of a modern horse. After the Mesohippus came the Merysippus. These were horses the size of donkeys. Merysippus had cement on their teeth. Some rhinoceroses in the Oligocene began to grow horns on their snouts. Another interesting animal lived in the Oligocene, Chalicotherium. It was an unfortunate copy of the Cretaceous Therizinosaurus on a different genetic base. These beasts used their long arms to bend tree branches and eat leaves. The hooves on the hands and feet of Chalicotherium had turned back into claws. Brontops was the last of the Brontotherians. And Metamynodon was the hippopotamus ungulate counterpart. The modern tapir emerged, unchanged from that time. Brachypus sideros, an Oligocene bat that was very similar to modern bats. Numerous insect eaters, particularly prehistoric hedgehogs, were found at that time. The last cymelests were living out their days. The number and diversity of primates declined markedly in the Oligocene. This was because there was less jungle. Some monkeys became accustomed to hanging under branches on their hands rather than running on all fours. These primates gradually became humanoid. They were small monkeys, weighing between 1.5 and 7 kilograms. These creatures had brains no bigger than those of other Oligocene apes. The first hares appeared. Pika. In dense forests lived the first true hare called Paleologus. Paleologus did not yet know how to jump and gallop, but hid from predators in burrows like marmots. Placental mammals. Afrotherians. The largest group of Afrotherians. These are the proboscideans. Many members of the proboscideans have finally come to resemble modern elephants. Eritreus is an almost normal elephant about the size of a cow. Baratherium was the size of an Indian elephant, but evolved toward hippopotamuses. Baratherium's tusks and trunk shortened almost to the point of being indistinguishable. The famous genus Mastodon appeared. The second great group of Oligocene Afrotherians. These are the now extinct Desmostylidae. The animals were a bit like herbivorous sea lions. Also included in the Oligocene Afrotherians are the daemons, Sirenians, and the nose-like Arsinotherium. Pyrotherians and Astropotherians were something like small hippopotamuses. Pachyrhukos was the South American equivalent of the rabbit. Rhynchopus was the South American equivalent of a pony. And Sramakinia was an animal that looked like an unfinished giraffe. It's worth looking at the Oligocene partially toothed animals. These were sloths and armadillos. A special place in the evolutionary chain was occupied by marsupials. The largest group of Oligocene marsupials are representatives of the bipedal marsupials. In the modern world, this group includes kangaroos and wombats. In the Oligocene, the bipedal marsupials were represented by the small kangaroo-like predator Echeltodetta. Also representing the top of the Oligocene food chain was the marsupial lion. It was one of the largest marsupial predators of all time. The marsupial lion reached up to 160 kilograms. An interesting feature of the animal was its strong and agile forelimbs with opposable thumbs. Apparently, the marsupial lion grabbed prey not with its teeth, but with its hands. In the Oligocene, the modern family of predatory marsupials was formed. The first representatives of this period were small, like foxes and small dogs. Also in the Oligocene, the first bandicoots appeared. These were large marsupial rats that jumped like kangaroos. Monotremes are still represented only by platypuses. Echidnas have not yet appeared. Sauropsids of the Oligocene. Pelagornithids, huge toothy albatrosses with wingspans up to 6 meters. Phororhacos, flightless birds of prey that have occupied an empty niche of large predator in South America. The representative of Phororhacos paraphosornis reached 2 meters in height and weighed up to 110 kilograms. But most other representatives of Phororhacos had much smaller sizes. For example, Celopterus weighed only 7 kilograms. The first modern genus appeared in the stork family. It was the night heron. Flamingos differed little from their modern representatives. Penguins were larger than they are today, up to 1.5 meters in height and weighed up to 90 kilograms. Ancient penguins had long, thin beaks like herons. Also in the Oligocene, the first modern genus of hawks, buzzards, and the first hummingbirds appeared. Some Oligocene crocodiles, such as the 5-meter-long Australian quincana, did not hide in water bodies, but ran briskly on land. Davyalosuchus was the largest of the Oligocene crocodiles, reaching lengths of almost 10 meters. Most Oligocene turtles already resemble modern turtles. But the Australian Myalanus resembled an armored horned beast with a long ossified tail, similar to the Mesozoic ankylosaurs. Among the scaly reptiles of the Oligocene, several may be mentioned. These are the large snake Urlanger, which reached 6 meters in length, and the spindle lizard Peltosaurus. The aquatic lizards Choristodega continued to exist. The Oligocene amphibians are still the same: frogs, salamanders, newts, and worms. At the end of the Oligocene, the Earth suddenly experienced global warming, so much so that the Antarctic glacier almost melted. In this issue you will hear a general story about the Neogene period, which consisted of 2 epochs. Miocene and Pliocene epochs. We will cover each era in detail in future releases. So, what was the Neogene period, which began 23 million years ago and ended 2 million years ago? The climate of the Neogene period was quite warm and humid, but somewhat cooler compared to the climate of the Paleogene period. Corals in southern Europe form reefs. The fauna in salty waters has strongly extended. Salt waters formed small seas that often appeared on the continents. Such seas were uninhabitable for corals, sea urchins, and starfish. But in these places was full of various fish and shellfish. Fish are no longer different from modern ones. The terrestrial organic world is also becoming similar to the modern one. Primitive creodonts are driven out by bears, hyenas, martens, dogs, badgers. Being more mobile and having a more complex organization, these animals adapted to a variety of living conditions, intercepted prey from creodonts and marsupial predators, and sometimes fed on these primitive hunters. One of the most dominant predators was the saber-toothed tiger. This beast was one of the largest and most dangerous predators of its time. Saber-toothed tigers were known for their immense strength and speed, as well as their sharp teeth and claws. Huge predatory cats were able to prey on large animals such as mammoths, bison, and rhinos. Saber-toothed tigers were the kings of their time. These predators were the perfect killing machines. Saber-toothed cats existed at the same time as other large cats, lions, tigers, cougars, but lost the competition despite their fantastic hunting and killing skills. It does not look very logical from the point of view of evolution. What's the matter? Saber-toothed cats had long curved fangs up to 20 centimeters in length. The fangs were used to stab and hold their prey, which they would then choke or break their necks using their powerful jaw muscles. A deadly bite was applied by tigers in a special way. Unlike modern cats, which bite with their incisors and fangs, saber-toothed cats used their lower jaws as leverage to open mouths wide and then quickly close mouths, using upper fangs to deliver a deadly bite to prey. Huge saber-shaped fangs allowed predators to pierce large prey, but interfered with an attempt to kill small and medium-sized animals. Climate change, global cooling led to the fact that large herbivorous fauna began to disappear. At the same time, the traditional food, tall juicy grass, disappeared first. Low grass was another reason that weakened the saber-toothed. After all, tigers have become easier to spot, as saber-toothed cats could attack in close proximity to the victim. The short legs and tails of predators did not allow them to run quickly over short distances, as is the case with modern large cats. The descendants of the Paleogene Merychippus and Hipparion already had teeth like those of a modern horse. The small lateral hooves of the new horses did not touch the ground. The hooves on the middle fingers were getting bigger and wider. The hooves kept the animals well on solid ground, made it possible to break the snow in order to extract food, and also defend themselves from predators. During the Oligocene, horses began to develop in North America and Europe. However, in Europe, the ancient horses died out at the beginning of the period, leaving no descendants. Most likely, these animals were exterminated by numerous predators. In America, ancient horses continued to develop. Subsequently, they gave real horses, which through the Bering Isthmus penetrated into Europe and Asia. In America, horses died out at the beginning of the Pleistocene, and large herds of modern mustangs, freely grazing on the American prairies, are distant descendants of horses brought by the Spanish colonialists. Thus, there was a kind of exchange of horses between the New World and the Old World. Dinotherium. These are huge elephants, in comparison with which even the current African elephants are midgets. Judge for yourself, the height reached 3 meters, and the weight was 14 tons. In size, dinotheres were second only to indricothers. Dinotheria are the second largest mammals. Unlike normal elephants, Dinotherii had tusks bent down. Scientists believe that it was easier for the giants to scrape the bark from the trees, which was a favorite delicacy for these animals. Also, these tusks can bend branches and uproot roots. Giant sloths lived in South America. Megatheria up to 8 meters in length. Standing on their hind legs, the Megatheria ate the leaves of the trees. These giants had a thick tail, a low skull with a small brain. The front legs were much shorter than the hind legs. Being clumsy, Megatheria became easy prey for predators and therefore completely died out, leaving no descendants. The media likes to remember dinosaurs, and then, as if once, a man appeared. But between the disappearance of dinosaurs and the appearance of people, more than 64 million years of difference. What happened on the planet during these years? And then amazing animals evolved, which we have safely forgotten about. The Neogene is a period that is part of the Cenozoic. The Cenozoic is the modern era. The Cenozoic is where man emerged. The Cenozoic is where we all live. During this period, the fauna of mammals is as close as possible to our days. Ancient groups of animals are dying out, those that have survived to this day appear. The flora is also changing, tropical forests are becoming smaller, animals are being replaced by deciduous forests. Let's see which animal dominated nature at that time. None of these animals survived to this day. Amphibian. This character is more like a fantasy hero. But these animals really existed and dominated the Earth for many millions of years. Amphibian. The largest predator of the Neogene amphibians, in fact, are the first large predatory mammals. Animal weight 500 kilograms, length 2 and 5 meters. For comparison, the average tiger weighs 220 kilograms. Indricotheriums are the largest land mammals in the history of the planet. The height, not the length of the body, was almost 5 meters. Indricotherium, the largest representatives of this species, weighed 17 tons. Giant birds. Huge birds are a striking feature of the Neogene. Argentavis is the largest flying bird in the history of the Earth. Such a bird weighed 70 kilograms, wingspan 7 meters, twice as large as a modern albatross. The average flight speed of the Argentavis is 65 kilometers per hour. But there were especially many large flightless birds during the Neogene period. As you probably noticed, in the Neogene, mammals and birds were larger than modern animals. Perhaps this is due to the peculiar paradise climate and flora. It was warm, everywhere there was woodland with tall grasses and river valleys. It was as similar as possible to modern savannas in Africa. There was plenty of food, but at the end of the Neogene, a cooling came. The savannas were replaced by tundra and forest tundra. And all these large mammals fell out of the race, losing the evolutionary struggle to smaller, bolder, and more adaptable species. Changing climatic conditions led to the formation of vast steppes, which favored the development of ungulates. Numerous artiodactyls originated from small hornless deer that lived on swampy soil. Antelopes, goats, bison, rams, gazelles, whose strong hooves were well adapted to fast running in the steppes. When there were so many artiodactyls that a shortage of food began to be felt, some of the animals settled in new habitats. These are rocks, forest steppes, deserts. From giraffe-like humpless camels living in Africa, real camels originated, inhabiting the deserts and semi-deserts of Europe and Asia. The hump with nutrients allowed camels to go without water and food for a long time. The forests were inhabited by real deer, of which some species are still found today, while others, such as Megaloceros, which were 1.5 times larger than ordinary deer, have completely died out. Like many other extinct animals, Megaloceros have no direct influence on modern life. However, their existence indicates that unusual and interesting creatures lived on Earth in the past. The largest males weighed almost 700 kilograms, about the same as male elk in Alaska, and had the largest antlers in the world. Some could reach 3.5 meters in width and weigh almost 40 kilograms. In females, the horns were shorter by 10 to 15%. These horns, like those of modern elk and deer, grew and fell off depending on the season. Then this gigantism was mainly motivated by sexual selection. Giraffes lived in the forest steppe zones, hippos, pigs, and tapirs lived near lakes and swamps. Rhinos and anteaters lived in dense bushes. Among proboscideans, mastodons with straight long fangs and real elephants appear. Gomphotherius lived in North America. This animal appeared in the early Miocene. Gomphotherius lived 14 million years ago, and this species lasted almost 10 million years. Later, the species migrated to Asia, Europe, and Africa due to falling sea levels. Gomphotherius remains have been found in South America, Europe, and Asia. Lemurs, monkeys, great apes live on trees. Some lemurs have switched to a terrestrial lifestyle. Animals moved on their hind legs. Reached 1.5 meters in height. They ate mainly fruits and insects. Dinornis. The giant bird Dinornis that lived in New Zealand reached 3.5 meters in height. The head and wings of the Dinornis were small. The beak was underdeveloped. The bird moved on the ground on long, strong legs. Dinornis survived until the Quaternary period and, obviously, was exterminated by man. In the Neogene period, dolphins, seals, walruses appear, species that live in modern conditions. At the beginning of the Neogene period, there were many predatory animals in Europe and Asia: dogs, saber-toothed tigers, hyenas. Among the herbivores, mastodons, deer, and one-horned rhinos predominated. In North America, carnivores were represented by dogs and saber-toothed tigers, and herbivores by titanotheres, horses, and deer. South America was somewhat isolated from North. Representatives of its fauna were marsupials, megateria, sloths, armadillos, broad-nosed monkeys. In the Upper Miocene period, an exchange of fauna takes place between North America and Eurasia. Many animals moved from mainland to mainland. North America is inhabited by mastodons, rhinos, predators, and horses moved to Europe and Asia. With the beginning of the Neogene, hornless rhinos, mastodons, antelopes, gazelles, pigs, tapirs, giraffes, saber-toothed tigers, and bears settle in Asia, Africa, and Europe. However, in the second half of the Pliocene, the climate on Earth became cool, and animals such as mastodons, tapirs, giraffes moved south, and bulls, bison, deer, and bears appear in their place. In the Pliocene, the connection between America and Asia was interrupted. At the same time, communication between North and South America was resumed. The North American fauna migrated to South America and gradually replaced its fauna. Of the local fauna, only armadillos, sloths, and anteaters remained. Bears, llamas, pigs, deer, dogs, and cats spread. Australia was isolated from other continents. Consequently, significant changes in the fauna did not occur there. In the Miocene, extremely interesting events took place. The climate changed so quickly that the animals had to literally sit on their suitcases. Most animals preferred warm habitats. When cold came on a certain territory, the migration of heat-loving animals became especially intense. The inhabitants of the Miocene made long journeys and invaded lands with a temperate warm climate. And local animals had to deal with uninvited guests. There were constant skirmishes for a real place under the sun. And the former owners had to leave their habitat and look for a new home. Some animals went to the territories from which the invaders came to them. There was a kind of animal exchange. Such large-scale migration influenced the serious and rapid evolution of many groups of mammals in the Miocene. At the end of the early Miocene, for the first time after a long period of mutual isolation, there was a significant exchange between Africa and Eurasia. The main effect of this exchange was the change in the African fauna. Cats, dogs, martens, rhinos, calicotheres, and pigs appeared in its composition. Probably at the same time, proboscideans emigrated from Africa to the Indian subcontinent. The first mastodons settled in Europe and North Asia in the early Miocene. At the same time, Ankypteria immigrated to Eurasia from North America. The most significant event in the history of the early Miocene rodents of Europe was the immigration of Asiatic hamsters, which no longer differed in appearance from modern descendants. In the Miocene, the first bovids and giraffes entered Africa from Eurasia. Miocene. This is the time of extinction of creodonts. However, in Asia in the Middle Miocene, two genera are still present. The largest representative of the Proviverinae, Dysopsilus, is the size of a modern jackal, and a very large representative of the Hyenodontinae, Hyonaeluros, which was the size of a tiger. It is interesting to note that both of these genera are common in Asia and Africa, and Hyonaeluros hyonaeler is also present in Europe. This confirms the exchange of creodont fauna between Asia and Africa through Europe in the Oligocene. The ethological features of the group probably contributed to the extinction of the creodonts. The consequence of this is an increase in control over spontaneous activity and aggression. This large predator was less aggressive than modern large representatives of the carnivore order Carnivora. An ecological corridor has formed through Asia Minor, the Middle East and northern Arabia to Afghanistan and China. This is what scientists call the unusual process of animal migration. The main animal exchanges between Eurasia and Africa passed through this corridor. The most rapid evolution of the most diverse groups is taking place. Hedgehogs, shrews, moles, pikas, squirrels, jerboas, hamsters, and numerous subspecies. Also, hyperevolution did not pass by various types of primates, rhinos, ruminants, proboscis, mustelids, dogs, hyenas, cats, and other animals. The Miocene can rightly be considered an epoch of great diversity of animal species, in the formation of which one of the leading roles belonged to the territory of Asia. The spread of the steppes and the gradual disappearance of forests in the Miocene strongly influenced the growth of the populations of herbivorous mammals. Fewer trees, less energy, which is so necessary for any animal. Imagine for a moment an ordinary tree. It spends most of its energy on creating a support for itself. To this end, the tree develops a special solid trunk and many branches. In a temperate climate, animals can consume only a very small part of the edible substance produced by a tree in a year. On deciduous trees, leaves generally grow for only 6 months of the year, and fruits and seeds, with the exception of nuts, appear for only a few weeks. This means that temperate forests can feed only a limited number of animals in a year. The sharp increase in the amount of grass on land in the Miocene epoch meant, in fact, the emergence of a fundamentally new source of food. However, at first, it was not easy for herbivorous mammals to use the resources of this bottomless pantry. Some animal species even became extinct because they could not adapt to a herbal diet. Mammals, whose teeth were designed for chewing soft leaves, found it difficult to switch to such a tough and fibrous food as grass. For such animals, the herbal diet meant constantly increased chewing, and the teeth of herbivores quickly wore out, creating serious problems for these animals. After all, mammals do not have an unlimited supply of teeth, and toothless jaws mean inevitable starvation for them. Despite all this, in the Miocene mammals became much more numerous and diverse. Many herbivorous species of animals arose. By this time, the ruminant stomach has become an ideal mechanism for digesting grass. As a result, a kind of explosion took place in the Miocene, giving rise to new species of herbivores capable of chewing gum. Ruminants can fill their bellies with a huge amount of food, which can be digested later. Moreover, if a predator attacks a ruminant, it can run away from it, taking with it a supply of food for several days in advance. Once in safety, the animal can, without too much haste, digest the food it has eaten. During this kind of ruminant revolution, the number of ancestors of the current antelope, buffalo, deer, giraffe, and sheep has increased dramatically. When Antarctica and Australia separated, a new ocean current formed that swept the entire world. Known as the Antarctic Circumpolar Current, it has caused global climate change and a massive upsurge of deep-sea nutrients. At the same time, kelp forests began to spread around the world. The oceans were primed for a rapid increase in biodiversity, and among this explosion of life were marine mammals. First of all, these were baleen whales. These whales appeared about 34 million years ago. But this was the first time that many new species appeared. There were over 20 different genera of baleen whales in the Miocene compared to today's 6. It was also the first time that whales began to increase in size, with some species reaching lengths of over 10 meters. 1. Balanoptera sibaldina may even have rivaled the modern blue whale in size, although scientists have not yet reached a definitive conclusion. Toothed whales also became much more numerous at this time. One line even became the top predator of the oceans along with sharks. These were macroraptorial sperm whales. There were many species, and all of these sperm whales were adapted to hunt other marine mammals rather than small prey such as fish, squid, or plankton. The teeth were huge, conical in shape, and the jaws could open very wide. The jaw muscles were obviously very strong, which gave even more bite force. The largest of all these hypercarnivorous sperm whales was Livyatan melvillei, perhaps the largest active predator ever. The whale could reach 17.5 meters in length. Each of the teeth was 30 centimeters long. These are the largest teeth, apart from tusks, in an animal that has ever existed. Being such a massive animal, the ancient sperm whale could probably prey on just about anything, including other whales. Leviathan's main competitor was probably Otodus megalodon, an incredibly hyped shark of comparable size in modern popular culture. Giant sharks flourished in the Miocene for the same reasons as marine mammals, and the megalodon was the largest of these animals. Another Miocene sperm whale, much smaller and less well known, is Raphacetus. Raphacetus had a very long, slender beak jaw, filled with rows of tiny teeth adapted for quick capture of fish. In fact, the predator was like a sperm whale trying to become a river dolphin. Since we are talking about dolphins, some of them also decided to get into the cohort of super large animals. Among the squalodons there were various species, some the size of a modern killer whale, but much more toothy. Initially, when squalodons were discovered, these predators were mistaken for dinosaurs, and they got their name because of the shark-like teeth. At that time, there were many families of toothed whales that are now extinct, including the antecedents. Perhaps the strangest Miocene cetaceans were the odobenocetopsids, with fragile crocodile snouts. One genus in this group, Odobenistops, had a bizarre pair of asymmetrical tusks protruding backwards from a broad muzzle. It may have been sensory organs, as these tusks were probably too fragile for actual combat. Odobenistops had powerful lip muscles, but nothing like teeth, other than tusks. This indicates that they fed by sucking food by picking mollusks from the seabed, like a walrus. And that's just cetaceans. During the Miocene, the evolution of pinnipeds, seals and their relatives, accelerated. At the beginning of the era, most of them were semi-aquatic creatures similar to otters, and by the end they already resembled modern species. One of these early, primitive pinniped relatives was Calpanomos. It was built like a bear and was originally related to raccoons, but it turned out that it was actually the predecessor of seals. The huge neck muscles and strong molars of Calpanomos indicate that it was a specialized eater of hard-shelled mollusks and similar foods, so it was very similar to a giant sea otter. As pinnipeds evolved, they became more and more like their descendants today. A new family of desmatophosids has evolved, related to modern walruses and sea lions. The largest species, Alodesmus, was a large animal, about 2.5 meters long. What's really interesting about Alodesma? If you look at the cross-section of the teeth, you can see the peculiar growth rings at regular intervals. This is presumably due to the fact that the males stayed on the beach during the mating season to protect their harem of females. During this time, they did not go to sea in search of food, so their teeth did not wear down at all. In the end, the groups of pinnipeds known to us today appeared odobenids, walruses, otariids, eared seals, and phocids, real seals. The walrus family was particularly diverse at that time, with at least 18 species, as opposed to one today. The largest of these was the formidable Pontolus magnus. With an estimated weight of up to 4,000 kilograms, this beast was the size of an Asian elephant and is undoubtedly one of the largest predators that has ever existed. For greater intimidation, he had 4 tusks instead of 2. Another genus, Pelagiarctos, had a similar build but was not as large. At the opposite end of the spectrum was the adorable Nanodobenus, the smallest member of the walrus family known. About 1.5 meters long, and it didn't even have tusks. Then came the otariids, represented today by sea lions and fur seals. They were not as diverse as the Miocene odobenids, but there were some very interesting species among them. For example, Thalassolian was huge, the size of a modern walrus. He lived in California. Oddly enough, Thalassolian literally translates to sea lion even though it was a fur seal. It is believed that this is the direct ancestor of the northern fur seal, an ancient species that arose in the subsequent geological period, the Pliocene, and still exists. Finally, real seals from the Phocidae family appeared. They differ from other pinnipeds mainly in the absence of external ears. One of the interesting genera was Prepusa. It is possibly the smallest marine mammal ever to have existed, measuring around 60 centimeters in length. There were quite a few species, one in what is now the Netherlands and several in Central and Eastern Europe. At that time, the last region was the bottom of a huge inland sea Paratethys, the last remnants of which today are the Black and Caspian Seas. The second genus is Hadrochirus, which is larger and not as harmless. Found on the Pacific coast of South America, it was related to modern Antarctic seals such as the leopard seal. Reached about 2.5 meters in length, and the jaws had strong teeth, ideal for chewing solid food. It may have gnawed on mollusk shells or even bones. The Thalassocnus sloth was ideally adapted to a semi-aquatic lifestyle. With dense bones and a long, beaver-like tail, as well as strong jaws for eating seagrass. However, on land, this animal was clumsy, because it had weak neck muscles, since it spent most of its time with its head on the seabed and fragile legs. Like hippos, it probably grazed in shallow water. Modern three-toed sloths are quite closely related to Thalassocnus, and are also surprisingly good swimmers. Finally, a few words should be said about otters. Like every other group of animals in the Miocene, these guys also suddenly grew huge. The largest member of the mustelid family in history was the Miocene otter, Anhydriodon, which is estimated to have weighed a staggering 200 kilograms. This lion-sized beast was technically not a marine mammal, as it lived in the freshwater lakes and swamps of Ethiopia. Strong, crushing teeth indicate that it ate a lot of solid food, perhaps turtles, crocodiles, armored catfish, bivalves, and the like. At the same time, he may have hunted terrestrial animals. A close relative, in Hydrotherium, also grew very large and could be found in what would become Mexico and the southern United States. Siamogale lived in the wetlands of China and Thailand. Its weight is estimated at about 50 kilograms, which is comparable to the weight of an adult wolf. The great thing about all the animals featured is that it's only a small part of what makes the Miocene era unique, because at the same time you had a lot of giant sharks and penguins, the first pastures, megafauna on land, a huge number of mega-animals in the Amazon basin and throughout South America, dominated by reptiles rather than mammals. Antelope-like pronghorns lived in North America. The bizarre horns of these animals grew right on the tip of the nose. Throughout the Miocene, horses continued to increase in size. Merygippus was the size of a pony today. The middle toe on each foot was disproportionately large compared to the same toe of its predecessors, and it can be said that Merygippus walked on tiptoe all his life, or rather, did not walk, but ran very quickly. Numerous tubercles on the molars helped him chew tough grass. Previously, horses were forest dwellers and ate tender and juicy foliage. However, by the beginning of the Miocene they had adapted to life on the open plains. Now elephants have become much more similar to their modern representatives. Mastodon. Scientists call this animal by another name, Platybelodon or spade tusk. The animal could make its way through the thickets like a heavy bulldozer. From the lower jaw protruded wide spade-shaped fangs, with which the animal dug various plants from the soil. Deinotherium was much larger than Mastodon. With the curved fangs of his lower jaw, he may have pried at the edible roots like a large pitchfork. We can get some idea of the Miocene ecosystem if we turn to its modern counterpart, the East African savannas. The grassy plain provides different types of food for a variety of animals. In the savannas of East Africa, zebras nibble at the rough tops of grasses, and wildebeests nibble at their leafy central parts. Gazelles, on the other hand, look for protein-rich seeds and shoots near the ground. Warthogs often kneel to reach the shortest grass or dig up edible bulbs and tubers from the ground. There are also herbivores in the savannas, who find food above the level of the tallest grasses. For example, a black rhinoceros eats tree bark, thin branches and foliage, but an elephant eats both grass and tree leaves, often absorbing up to 250 kilograms of vegetation per day. Well, growth allows the giraffe to avoid any kind of competition, since this animal can cut off branches and foliage at a height of 6 meters from the ground. Thus, different types of herbivorous animals do not claim each other's food resources, and there is enough food for everyone. Perhaps it was the same during the Miocene. Different species existed at the expense of different parts of the ecosystem. In the same period, other new settlers appeared. At the beginning of the Miocene, the ranks of birds were replenished with new species of parrots, pelicans, pigeons, and woodpeckers. A little later, the first ravens and falcons joined them. New mammals such as mice, rats, guinea pigs, and porcupines evolved rapidly. A strange group of horse-like animals also appeared, Chalicotheria. With large claws resembling hooves, they dug up edible roots. From now on, animals could move freely from Africa to Europe or Asia and vice versa. A kind of two-way traffic soon emerged, with elephants migrating from Africa to Eurasia and North America, while cats, buffaloes, giraffes, and pigs traveled in the opposite direction. The first primates were small animals, similar to shrews. Primates appeared on Earth about 65 million years ago. Evolution continued to work in this direction, and by the middle of the Oligocene, two main groups of primates had formed. New World monkeys in South America and Old World monkeys in Africa and Asia. Soon another group of monkeys descended from the African branch, which became the ancestor of the great apes and, ultimately, humans. The brain of great apes is larger than that of their other relatives. In addition, primates do not have a tail, and long and strong arms are perfectly adapted for climbing trees and jumping from branch to branch. The fossil remains of a small anthropoid ape, which they called Egyptopithecus, Egyptian monkey, fell into the hands of scientists. This monkey lived in Africa during the Oligocene era, about 27 million years ago. No one can say with certainty that it was Egyptopithecus who was the ancestor of modern great apes, but this is not at all excluded. Shortly after the beginning of the Miocene, about 24 million years ago, another, more highly developed great ape appeared, Dryopithecus, similar to the current chimpanzees. These animals quickly moved from their African homeland through land bridges to Europe and Asia. Apparently, Dryopithecus walked on two legs, but ran and climbed trees with the help of all four limbs. Perhaps the primate even carried food in his hands. So, the history of mankind was about to begin.
This is the savannah 5 million years ago. The ancient shroud is almost no different from the modern one. Once upon a time, this place was covered with dense, boundless forests and impenetrable jungle. Now, due to climate change, these vast territories occupy a quarter of the ancient planet. Savanna cannot be called a dead desert. Life is also vibrant here. Just like in the thicket of the forest, in the mountains, or on the underwater reefs of the world's oceans. Pliocene epoch. A time of global change in the world of flora and fauna. The world continues to change without stopping for a second. Pliocene epoch is the final epoch of the Neogene period. It was a time of sharp cooling of our planet. The rich fauna suffered significant losses. Many species of animals that massively inhabited the Earth disappeared in short periods of time. According to one version of scientists, cooling played a major role in this. Others believe that increased interspecific competition caused the extinction of many ancient animals. This is a muskox, a unique animal originally from the Ice Age, outliving mammoths by 7,000 years. The muskox is happy about the cold weather. Thick fur and unpretentiousness in food create complete comfort for this animal. Muskoxen are the most formidable mammals not only in the Pliocene. These animals have survived to this day and still live in 4 national parks and reserves. From the name itself, it follows that the muskox combines the characteristics of a bull and a sheep. Powerful, incredibly hard horns are the heritage of bulls. The animal got its short tail, which is hidden in thick fur, from rams. And although the muskox is more similar in appearance to a bull, the closest relative of this animal is the mountain sheep. The muskox's fur is thick and long. In some places it can reach 1 meter. Fur covers the entire animal, with the exception of the nose, lips, horns, and hooves. The body weight of a muskox can reach from 300 to 650 kilograms. This species is protected by the states of its owners. Among bovid American migrants in the fauna of North Asia were the muskox and Sorgelia. It was a large animal with an elongated muzzle. It resembled a modern wild goat. The horns were short and rounded at the ends. The animal fed on trees and shrubs. Against the general background of the relatively smooth evolution of Pliocene mammals, 2 events stand out that were of fundamental importance for the subsequent history of the Earth's biocenosis. The first of them is the appearance in northern Eurasia of the vole family, whose representatives in the small size class have mastered feeding on the green mass of plants. This event is associated with the formation of a fundamentally new zonal type of communities, meadow steppes. However, voles themselves played and continue to play a significant role in the formation of soils and plant associations in the steppe zone of the northern hemisphere. Another even more important, and perhaps related to the first event, is the appearance of man. For communities of plants and animals on Earth, the increase in the number and population diversity of the genus Homo had catastrophic consequences. In the Pliocene era, South and North America were favored by glyptodonts. These are giant fossil armadillos, about 3 meters high and weighing more than 2 tons. The appearance of the Ditodont least of all resembled mammals. The huge dome-shaped shell made the glyptodont look like a land turtle. Glyptodont was a herbivore. This is evidenced by the absence of fangs and incisors in the animal. The armadillo's main defense against predators was its tail, covered with hard bone plates, with a club at the end. Waving such weapons, the glyptodont fought off enemies, of which there were many in the animal world of the Pliocene. In the Pliocene, grass continued to serve as an inexhaustible source of food for herbivores. Many animals that ate leaves died out, and more highly organized ruminants took their place. In Europe and Asia, vast grassy plains provided shelter for huge numbers of buffalo, deer, gazelles, and early varieties of antelope. The prairies of North America were inhabited by huge herds of deer, camels, horses, mastodons, and pronghorns. There were also short-necked giraffes, grazing among vast herds of other herbivores. Like other ruminants, giraffes ate grass. Gradually, the giraffes' necks lengthened, and these animals began to get their food from the treetops. The first hippopotamuses appeared in the Pliocene. Perhaps they descended from some pig-like ancestors. Researchers were able to find out that in those ancient times, several species of these fauna representatives lived on the Earth. Only 2 species of hippopotamuses have survived to this day, and both species live in Africa. It is assumed that hippos were originally forest animals, but a sharp decrease in the number of trees forced these animals to leave their favorite places and settle near water sources. Small and medium-sized predators lived in packs and hunted in groups of several individuals, creating pens and ambushes. This hunting strategy is still widespread today. For example, African wild dogs hunt in small packs, usually no more than 7 or 8 animals. The victim is identified in advance, before the chase begins. As a rule, this is a still fragile cub from a grazing herd or a weak, sickly-looking animal. The strategy itself is very simple. The victim is separated from the herd and then relentlessly pursued until it is exhausted. When the poor animal slows down, the pack surrounds the prey and pushes it to the ground, with individual members of the pack grabbing the prey by different parts of the body, for the nose, tail, and belly. Prey can vary in size, but a small pack of African wild dogs can kill a zebra 10 times the weight of any of its members. In the late Miocene and early Pliocene, South America was still a sanctuary for some species of unusual, toothless mammals. These were incomplete teeth. These included the armadillos, tree sloths, and anteaters. Among these creatures there were also large herbivores. For example, Toxodon. With its short limbs and wide 3-toed feet, this animal resembled a rhinoceros. However, the placement of its nose, eyes, and ears suggests that it spent most of its life in the water, like a hippopotamus. The most famous carnivore of the Pliocene is considered to be the saber-toothed tiger, Smilodon, which lived in the northern hemisphere. A distinctive feature of this representative of the feline family were the huge fangs protruding from its upper jaw. Pointed fangs about 18 centimeters long served as weapons for Smilodon. Having caught up with its prey, the Smilodon plunged its fangs into the belly or throat of the victim, and then also used these fangs to cut the prey into pieces. With its size, Smilodon resembled a modern lion or Amur tiger. Moreover, the predator could weigh from 160 to 400 kilograms. In total, scientists were able to count 5 species of Smilodon, but none of these tigers survive to this day. 5 million years ago, Ardipithecus cadaba lived on the territory of modern Ethiopia. This species was an intermediate link between apes and humans. The structure of the bones of Ardipithecus indicates the vertical position of the body when walking. The animal was already trying to walk on its hind legs. Anankus appeared 5 million years ago. These are today extinct proboscis animals. The height of the distant ancestors of elephants reached 3.5 meters. The skull was short, high and narrow. The length of the upper tusks was up to 3 meters. Adult Anankus did not have lower tusks. Stegotetrabelodons. These animals reached 4 meters in height and 12 tons of weight. These animals with a difficult name did not live long and within a short period became completely extinct. Maharids. The predators had relatively short fangs, weighed up to 220 kilograms, and hunted mastodons. The Questa sea cow had a length of up to 9 meters and a weight of up to 10 tons. The Pliocene animal had hooves at the ends of short limbs. The cow had no teeth. Food was chewed in the mouth with 2 plates. The cow moved along the bottom, moving its front legs, or used a fin. This animal lived in shallow waters. Presumably it was a herd animal. Towards the end of the Pliocene, a narrow isthmus formed between North and South America, restoring the connection between the animal world of these 2 continents. Two-way traffic immediately arose across the isthmus, and a grandiose migration of mammals began. Neoralagus. This ancient relative of the hare was the size of a dog and could weigh up to 23 kilograms. The ancient animal lived on the island of Majorca, and in the absence of predators, it became very large, well-fed, and sedentary. Among the rodents were horned gophers. Gophers lived in burrows. It is unclear why these animals used horns, either for mating displays or for protection from predators. Servaltzes had a body length of up to 3 meters, a weight of up to 700 kilograms, and horns up to 2 meters wide. Hadrochira seals were up to 2.5 meters long and fed on crustaceans and mollusks. Dromornis birds were up to 3 meters tall and weighed up to 500 kilograms. Dromornis were herbivores and could not fly. 5.5 million years ago, Thorbjarnarsson's crocodile appeared. It was the largest species of crocodiles, up to 7.5 meters long. This predator differed from other species of crocodiles by its wide muzzle. Presumably, the crocodile fed on human ancestors. There are no traces of the teeth of this animal on the bones of the ape people, but it is possible that Thorbjarnarsson's crocodile simply swallowed them whole. The Laophis viper could reach a length of 3 or 4 meters and weigh up to 26 kilograms. This made the Laophis snake the largest and most venomous viper in history. The Bluff Downs giant python could be up to 10 meters long and preyed on mammals, birds, and other reptiles. In Pliocene times, there were a large number of antelopes. Many were similar in body composition to bulls. At the end of the Pliocene era, leptobos lived, which were close in structure to real bulls. In the Pliocene, the ancestors of camels and llamas developed elastic pads on their legs instead of hoofs, calluses. At this time, camels moved from North America to Eurasia, and llamas to South America. Pigs were numerous in Neopliocene times. A characteristic feature of the late Pliocene was the appearance of some well-known megafauna. The woolly rhinoceros and mammoth are distributed in Eurasia and North America. These large animals survived until the Pleistocene era, when they became extinct due to climate change and collision with modern humans. At the beginning of the Pliocene era, the first hippopotamuses appeared, but Anthracotherium and giant pigs no longer existed on Earth. Titanes. This prehistoric bird was certainly impressive. Adults reached a height of 2.5 meters and weighed about 140 kilograms. Titanes walleri of the early Pleistocene closely resembled its theropod dinosaur ancestors, which went extinct 60 million years before the appearance of this bird. Giant birds of prey and theropods have a fairly similar structure. Locomotion on 2 legs, small forelimbs, and a massive head. Australia was isolated from other continents. Consequently, no significant changes in the fauna occurred there. Thank you for watching our episode. Give it a thumbs up and leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't and click on the bell so you don't miss new and interesting releases from the Real Unreal channel.